You're listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio from a discussion panel that was recorded at San Diego Comic-Con 2019.
Also on a podcast of Ice and Fire as well as Ice and Fire Con.
Hi, my name is Tara. I am a webcaster, podcaster, creator, and organizer of Ice and Fire Con.
Okay, so we have a bit of a structure here for our discussion, but it's also going to be really audience participation in it, so I'll just go over the outline briefly. We're going to start with chat about Game of Thrones final season, and then we'll go into spin-offs and prequels, future of the Ice and Fire fandom, talk about some of the other world of Ice and Fire works, George R. R. Martin's works in other genres, if he thinks to read while he's working on a sixth book. Ice and Fire Convention, other events going on. So at the end of the panel, we'll have a formal Q&A, and so make sure you come during that time. But in any of these topics, if there's something that's burning, just come up there and we'll take a question, because we really want to hear from the audience. So you don't have to wait till the end. At the end is just a generic Q&A. You can ask anything, any theory or whatever. But if we're talking about season 8, you want to talk about it, come up here and ask a question or get your comment in, okay? But it's going to really be audience participation here for this. Okay. So season 8, thoughts on season 8. We're good?
Do you really want to start with me? I'm not sure I'm the person to start with.
Terrible channel of people that really hated this, but what was good about it? Any thought? I thought like the battles when you could see them were good.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, like, I enjoyed watching some of the episodes for sure, or at least parts of them. I mean, okay, Brienne getting knighted. There you go. That was that whole. At first, I was like, "What is all this? What are they just sitting around talking and drinking? This is a waste of my time," you know. But like, as it went on for like a few more minutes, and they were like fleshing out their conversations more, and then of course the ending that high point with Brienne getting knighted was really good. And like things like finally getting like a little Sansa and Sandor, reunion and stuff like that. Like there were some little high points in there, and big ones honestly with the Brienne thing. But like it just honestly and I think a lot of people feel the same way that. I mean, at least maybe my friend group is kind of just our own little sect. But like it was just a very rushed, forced season that like. I think that they just wanted to get it done, and they did, the show and the actors a disservice.
Well, I've never been very positive about the show. I've always been a book snob, so I apologize for that. But I mean, like I've kind of made my peace with the show, so I mean, like I was enjoying it for what it was. I really liked the battle at Winterfell. I thought it was just fun. I mean, like if you just take away all logic. But it's fun to watch.
Just turn off all your lights in your house. Just turn off all the power.
Which is what we did. I mean, we were watching it in a big room on a big screen with a bunch of people and had no lights on and everything. And it honestly, the experience of watching it with 100-something Game of Thrones Sound of Ice Fire fans was like what made that episode great. So.
Yeah. So I was all right. I enjoyed most you want to see the reunions. That's what I'm dying for in the next book is to see the characters come back together. So I was happy to watch that. Overall, I was just okay about it. And I've been okay with just for the seasons overall. So I've never had very high expectations. But then the second to last episode, and then, at that point you're just mad.
Well, the Brienne Jaime thing, I don't know if that's going to be in the books or something they threw into the fans. I mean, it was good initially until he leaves. Leaves her again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think. I mean, I guess honestly, him leaving her, that not being like some sort of happy ending, that is very Martin. But I honestly don't know if I foresee there being like their relationship going that far.
Yes.
In the books. I do think that was a lot of fan service on their part. And I don't necessarily blame them for it, but like the him leaving thing, I mean, honestly, that's an entirely different thing that I don't even know if I want to get into. Okay. At least not yet.
Any thoughts? So people that liked it first before we get people hated it. Is there any thoughts? Like, what did you like about it, or what's the highlights? Does anyone want to put their hand up or come up? No, we got somebody.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, back with this.
Okay. I just think a lot of people complain about it being rushed and like they didn't quite get the ending they were looking for, but it's about the only way to actually conclude that kind of a series. people were there's a lot of people that are Targaryen fans that are like wanting Dany to sit on the throne, and you can't have Dany sit on the throne if she wants to break the wheel. It's not going to happen. She's just going to continue like a monarchy as they go on. You have to get to a democracy in some form of way. So you literally just have someone go ham on the city and burn everything to the ground and start fresh as the thing progresses forward.
Well, I think that's a good point on Dany being a villain. My view on it is, yes, she can become a villain in the books, but there wasn't a lot of time to get there in the show. I think it was the transition that really shocked people rather than the end point.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know quite a few people who were just upset with it and, with her being the bad guy. But like, I think that even some of the people who at first were really, frustrated or mad about it, you rethink it a little bit if you rewatch the series or the episode, or episodes. There are plenty of signs there, but they're so sparse throughout. So many seasons of the show, like they're few and far between, really. And so then all of a sudden the last season is just like bam, 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 she's the bad guy. Like it's not so much that she didn't get the throne or that she turned out to be, not, this great queen or whatever. It's that they did her character arc a disservice. But honestly, that's kind of par for the course with like all of the character arcs in season 7. So.
Right in the front here, yeah.
So how far can you take that if Dany remained, if she was to stay on the throne? You can carry it along for quite some time. But in order to kind of clean the slate, so to speak, that's kind of what they want to do. But they left some dangling chads in order to kind of carry it through. So I kind of see where they're coming from and how they want to respect it. Okay, kind of clean the slate, kind of add more characters in other respects that they're going to carry this through.
Yeah, I feel like that's why a lot of people feel it was rushed. It's just like, I've always thought Dany is kind of going down that path. I think it's pretty clear in the books that she's got anger issues and is not going to take rejection once she gets to the Seven Kingdoms lightly, because they're not going to accept all these foreigners coming in as an army. So, I mean, she is very much facing a lot of clashing going on with all the lords and everything. I don't know how they'll solve that. It's got to be another Marine not going on there. But I just like the way that she flipped from planning to take the city when the bells ring, stop, and the bells ring. She went crazy. I think that's where a lot of people are mad. It just flipped, and it didn't seem like there was a really spark to why.
It's such an extreme villain that no one should reasonably be sympathetic to her at that point. They could have kept it a little more gray. Yes, she's bad. Then that'd be more tragic when she's killed, but she was just so evil at that point, or mentally incapacitated. It was just there's no sympathy for her at that point.
Oh, I mean, her that whole last speech that she gave was basically like, "We're gonna take over the world. Like, I can do what I want because I'm a Targaryen and I have a dragon." It's just and again, like. I think that I don't know if in the books she would ever get to that point of like making a speech like that where she's literally talking about taking over the world. Like, here's Pinky, where's her brain? I just with the rush thing, it's like if they had done a 10 episode season, and yes, some of these episodes were longer, but they weren't longer enough. And I'm using it, I know that's bad grammar, but I'm using it on purpose. They weren't longer enough to make up for it only being 6 episodes, and them cramming all of these changes and everything into, just 6 episodes. Like, just because the previous signs of her being mad were, again, so few and far between. I mean, we had 1 or 2, like, really just her burning Sam's dad and his brother in season 7 and everything. Like, all of a sudden in season 6, it's just bad. And also, I mean, her scenes with Jon and everything were just kind of lit. So.
Well, my theory is Jon was brain damaged since the Battle of the Bastards. He's not in the air there. He was almost suffocated. I mean, he died as well, so he lost his agency. But I'm sympathetic in a sense, because I mean, George himself is struggling to finish the series. He has the time that he can take it. They had to end it, but so I get it. It's a difficult ending to land, but it's almost like if you can't do it, pass it on to somebody else. to do so. But okay, so any people that were in the middle or really hated it in the comments here in the front?
I think that Dani was always the champion for women and children. I could see her burning the Lannister army, but she was very clear that all of the citizens of King's Landing were there, and I can't see her just snapping, saying, I don't care that there's women and children and innocents here, I'm just going to release it.
Well, the women and children were the reason why she didn't go there in the first. Like the last couple of seasons, she was just sitting there, like doing nothing because of that. And then they had won. So then why burn? I would get if she went to Cersei's tower and blew that up, but she just started like burning everything. It's like what?
And it's the outer rings too. So like that's the poorest group of people as well.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be here, Chris.
Where I struggle the most is in the lore, and I understand the show. I appreciate the show and the books being two separate bodies of work. So I accept that going into my next statement. And even in the show, we start the opening sequence with all this lore, and you're telling us about this big mystery and these amazing creatures, these others. And then I felt it was the most anticlimactic, upsetting thing to have it end out of nowhere, and also for me to have it be Arya to have her big moment, which was badass. I still think it was beautifully shot, it looked great, but I didn't feel like that was her story or her journey, when even in the show, they've been setting it up as this whole thing happening with the North. Even in the show, I'm seeing these visual showdowns between Jon and the Night King, and they're setting us up like we're gonna have this big moment. Meanwhile, like he's standing over in the corner screaming at a dragon. Like I just struggled because I expected so much more, and then to go back and reread the prologue and to see that it's of importance, it has weight, and then just to have it in so abruptly, and you're telling me that the whole series there's this threat that's coming. It's the most important thing, and now you're mad and salty, you're going to burn a whole bunch of people. I just felt really let down, and I felt that was the piece that George was setting us up for, that this lore, these others, is truly the great threat, and in the end, it wasn't. It's a chick on a dragon.
I really strongly feel that that battle is something they don't have information on. I really think that they just winged it completely, and that we're going to get something completely different. What happened in King's Landing, I think there's like plot points there that they just maybe didn't handle very well. But I can't see anything going on in the Battle of Winterfell actually happening at all.
Well, and I mean, so my thought on that, I do agree that the others and everything, they are definitely a big bad in the series. I don't think they're the end all be all big bad. I think the whole point of the books and therefore the show, I guess, is that it's people. You know, the people are the ones that you're really going to be struggling and fighting against. But that said, again, it pulls us back to the whole rushing thing. Like, it was very abrupt. Like, we get one big, enjoyable, episode with this battle, and then they're just gone. The whole, like Ashley said, I certainly don't think it's going to end that abruptly. Like, oh, we're all just going to gather at Winterfell and have this one battle, and then everything's all fine with those guys, and we just have to go deal with Cersei. I just don't. I don't know. Martin's better than that.
I think I'll disagree on what the end point will be, because I think the symptom of the Night King being killed very easily or anticlimactic is what caused that. I think is that the others will be dealt with after. I think King's Landing and Cersei will be first, and I think they switched that in the show, and that caused some of the problems. One being why everyone seemed to survive being swarmed by zombies or whites, right? They just got up. Like, I think because they needed to survive to get to part 2. But I think in the books it may be the other way around. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes. I don't think there'll be a Night King in the books, so the others will be different in the books. But I think that was one of the problems with the last season. So is the TechCast support guy here? Is it possible to move this mic up further? We have some really good comments. We're hoping to record it. But if you're just talking, we won't catch it. So if you move the mic up, that may encourage people to come up to it, or not. We'll see. Can you come up to the mic? Okay.
Yeah, we want to make sure everybody actually hears the questions.
So
also, we can't necessarily see all of you.
on what happened with Daenerys, I was just thinking there's an interesting comparison between the fall of Daenerys and the fall of Robb Stark. Like, the way that's built up so well in the books And the way the adaptation of that, with him making bad decisions like sending Theon on the embassy mission, or emissary mission to the Iron Islands, and that didn't go well, beheading the Karstark. There's all these moments where you can kind of, and then when the Red Wedding happens, you look back and you see, oh yeah, we can really see that coming. And it was built up. And it didn't happen that way with Daenerys. It was like 3% of the development to that point when her character flips. And then flips in a moment when it doesn't even make sense. Like we said, like she didn't even have a reason to burn down King's Landing, and we didn't get the build up there. And the biggest thing I was thinking of in terms of the changes from the books, and this is just my theory, maybe I'm totally wrong about this, is deleting the entire Young Griff plot, which I don't, in case there are people here who haven't read the books and are going to, I think I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it, but that plot with Young Griff could lead in a direction. You could really see a situation where that could contribute to Daenerys' madness in a way that makes, I think, a lot more sense than what we got. So.
Yeah, I think the Dornish probably rejecting Daenerys is probably going to be a thing that comes up, and that'll really tick her off.
Well, not only Young Griff, but even Stannis, I think, will maybe around long enough for Dany to get there. I think there's going to be involvement there. Like this, they got things. They ended storylines earlier than expected. I think.
I'm fairly certain we talked about the Stannis thing,
Yes.
after it happened. I don't even remember what year that was, but yeah, like he's another great example of just cutting off something that could have
A great character arc.
Yeah.
Just a quick question: Are we full spoilering books and everything here?
I think we can. I mean, the show's over, so.
Yeah.
Can I share my quick theory?
Sure.
Okay, so my theory is like in book 6, like, Young Griff's there, Aegon, he's, conquered a part of Westeros, somehow he starts interacting with Dany, like there's a marriage proposal, then it's revealed he's not actually Aegon, and then that really pisses Dany off. So that's just my idea.
Well, he's the Mummer's dragon, right? I think Dany, Slayer of Lies, will watch him away and stand.
And then now she's building up from that moment when she destroys him.
Yes.
That's now she's heading down that dark path.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm very much team Dany is the Mad Queen, which is why this season was so extra frustrating, because the first rule of good storytelling is show, don't tell, and then they have these giant time skips where it's like, Dany's doing fine, suddenly Dany's making bad, poor decisions again, but this time somebody gets killed. 6 months later, she is angsting hard, and you're supposed to just believe that she went crazy in this time. And I think that's the other reason that the absurdity of her being driven crazy by these bells is even more angry-making to me. I can speak. It is even more annoying to me because it's just such bad writing. They're expecting us to do the character building and fill in the blanks of that descent into madness instead of showing it to us. I'm sorry, you're the writers. Write it for us. Don't make us write the show.
But then Varys won't have a part.
Well, it is implied that Varys was trying to have her poisoned. I think.
Yes. Oh, not even implied. It was straight. It was straight up, without actually saying the words. Put poison in Daenerys' food and drink. Yeah.
Varys and Littlefinger. The Varys just undone by his own stupidity. Littlefinger, I would have won if it wasn't for you damn kids. It's just disappointing to the master.
Well, they killed off Littlefinger, so they needed a new person to just do the most obvious stupid thing and then get killed for it.
Honestly, at that point, I really just wanted Varys to be yes, I'm going to poison Dany, and just because that's the quality writing we got. And
thank you.
I have one comment and one question. The comment is about something you were saying about how you thought the Battle of Winterfell would be totally different in the books. In one of the after the show's bonus things that HBO does, the showrunners pretty much said that they had made Arya being the one to kill him on their own.
Yeah.
So I really feel and my personal theory was one of them, I think it's David's wife, Amanda Peet, is hardcore feminist, and I just had this theory that either she knew that Dany was not going to go over well, and they're making Arya or something, and it kind of along those lines. My question is, I'd be curious to know who you think had the best character arc on the show now that we kind of know how it all ended on the show.
Brienne.
Really?
honestly, I'm trying to think about it, and it's like,
Yeah.
It would have been Jamie, except.
Yeah, Jamie until
right?
the end.
Jamie until the end.
The end, it's like prophecies don't matter. I guess. Like, I mean, fair enough if you want to do it. Rocks are going to be the thing that kill people, but.
Well, I think
I
that
came in Kingslayer to save King's Landing. I don't care about King's Landing. It's that it'll burn.
I actually made a complaint about the Valonqar prophecy thing, and then somebody told me no, like the one brief scene or wherever where Cersei has that that flashback where Cersei's young and she goes to see Maggie the Frog. Apparently she and I watched it again. There's no the Valonqar prophecy is not stated the way it is in the book, so they left it out completely. But even outside of that, just I read some articles where people were making excuses about why Jamie went back. It's like, oh, he's obsessed with her. He's never going to be over her. She's always going to be a part of him. But honestly, I think it's just not just a detriment to like his character arc, but also like it's a bad. It's just bad in general because it like if you think about abusive relationships and how abusive their relationship was. I mean, they were both bad, but Cersei was very clearly the aggressor in a lot of the abuse. The idea that he just goes back to her in the end, for really no good reason is just kind of disgusting to me. So
they certainly had they both had problems in that relationship, but at least from the book's perspective, you can see that Cersei manipulated Jamie into going to Kingsguard, throwing his life away, basically. Like he also had good parts of that he wanted to do, but she manipulated him into that, and to see him go back.
And I mean, I don't think that there's going to be something in the books, and nor do I think that it should have happened in the show where him and Brienne had some sort of happily ever after. Like, I'm not a Jamie and Brienne shipper, to be honest. But like that said, I just for him to just run back to her arms, again for what? Like he gets captured on the way there. He's luckily, Tyrion ex machina over here, set loose and like allowed to go see her and possibly save her. Just the whole thing was a mess, and the writers can defend their stupid reasons for doing it all they want, but I honestly think that a lot of the choices they made, particularly this season, and not the Dany one, I actually, like we've said, do think that would happen, but a lot of the choices they made with character arcs this season were just, they just felt like doing it, like the Arya thing. I mean, and you're right, like I think they said that they went back and forth, and in the end they decided, well, who would be the least likely one? Arya. Like, they might as well have picked a name out of hat. So...
Yeah.
Should have been Pod. I agree. I'm sorry, who? Podrick Dane?
The actual Prince of Dorne.
Yeah, the actual Prince of Dorne is Pod.
Well, you kind of covered some of what I was going to say, but to add on to the Jamie thing and her comment about showing and not telling, I think what frustrated me most about that is there is something interesting in the idea of a man having a crisis of conscience of like, oh, I can be this person that I was before that's really comfortable, or I could go be this hero, but I feel like I don't deserve to be this hero. Like, that's interesting, that's compelling, and done correctly, I could have bought into it. So it's not that I ultimately disagree completely with where it went, it's just I didn't get anything that told me why it went that way. Something like scenes at Winterfell of people treating him like a good man and him freaking out because he's not used to being treated that way. Or hearing the soldiers talk about what they're going to do to Cersei or something like that kind of gave us, okay, he did this thing with Brienne and he's feeling it, and oh my god, now he's having a crisis, now he's going to leave. And I just feel like I don't necessarily disagree with what happened. I think that could be an interesting story, but I don't know why it happened.
Yeah, see, when he first left, I was on no, he's just going back to get closure. He wants to be there at the final battle and, just get closure on the relationship. And how they could have done it is maybe it was originally that he was going back to get closure. He was not going back for Cersei, but then when he sees her, then he has a crisis. I could have seen that happening. But just leaving Brienne just for Cersei, just out of nowhere, after all of that, it did not make sense.
And nothing seemed to happen to push it that way. It was literally just another snap.
Well, I mean, and this honestly, goes all the way back to season 2, where he bashes in his cousin's head and becomes a kinslayer,
yes.
As well as a kingslayer. Like there was an interview with Benioff or Weiss, I can't remember who, where they basically said like Jamie is a bad man. He's a murderer. He's a like I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like they hate, whoever it was, Benny Uppervoice hated Jamie. And I honestly think this was kind of their last like, well, we had to show you a little bit of his character arc because he's important to like this story that I guess we have to tell. But in the end, we're just gonna like show you guys like he's actually a bad man. He's so bad, he's gonna say he's bad, and then he's gonna go back to Cersei, and that's how it's all going to end. He's gonna be, die in her arms. Like,
I never liked that change in the first place. I mean, he wouldn't kill his own family.
Exactly.
He'd be bad without killing his own family. There's different aspects to it. So.
Some of us are really bitter.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I liked the things that I liked about the last season. The cinematography was really good. I think the filming. I luckily had like a 4K TV, so I was able to see everything in the dark. So that was really but I think that was and. Honestly, I think that a lot of the ideas and the storylines, the endings, like everybody's saying, could have made sense. But the way that it was achieved, it got there was, it just didn't make any sense. It just seemed like they were streamlining and trying to cut corners so that they could get it all done in 10 episodes or whatever.
Yeah, like, can anyone tell me what Bran's purpose was the entire time?
Yeah.
Bran is evil. I think Bran is evil. It's like, let's let everybody die in King's Landing, then I'll come on my ship. I'm here to be king now. Like,
Bran's purpose was to become a meme.
So, yeah, it's like there's all these build-ups. There's build-ups with Bran and, being this, all-seeing, green seer and, all that stuff, and then nothing happens, and then all this buildup of Jon being the actual true heir to the crown or the throne, but then nothing happens, and then Varys actually kind of even egging that on by like going and sending out ravens everywhere to let everybody know. But then by the time we see the queen at the end, she doesn't even know that nobody knows that he's the true king or the heir. And it's like all of these things are happening, and there's all this buildup, and there's no real resolution. And that's what I had an issue with.
One thing I did love, because I've been in the fandom for probably around 15 years now, so the L plus R equals J used to be very, controversial theory that was out there. And what I love is that we spent all these years just, going on and on about L plus R equals J, and it means absolutely nothing.
So yeah.
Or Azor Ahai, all that like.
Yeah. So I think for us as fans, I think that it was just disappointing to have all these different storylines build up, all these different character arcs. And the only one that really kind of played through, I think, was Theon. I thought Theon had a good character arc and ended up well at the end. But other than that, I think it was just useless.
Oh gosh, if you told
my brand to Theon.
Yeah, if you told me like a few years ago that I would legit cry when Theon Greyjoy died, I would have been like, who are you?
Hi.
What do you think of Tyrion's arc? Because I felt like he totally not make a good decision for 3 straight seasons and barely got punished for it at all. Like he was in prison for like a month maybe.
Yeah. You have to measure by beard length to see how long he was in there, right?
I can't really say anything because he's so different from his book character.
Yeah.
I just don't like him.
Well, it's funny when they brought him in at the end and they're like, you shut up, you're not here to talk, and then he starts dictating like what's going to happen with the whole kingdom. It's like, okay, you are here to talk.
Yeah, I mean, like Tyrion in the books is he is a gray character and honestly verging on the very dark side of gray, if you ask me. He is not a good person. No. He is witty and his stuff is fun. Like his chapters are fun to read, but he is not a good guy in the books. And the show, they as much as they disliked Jaime, they loved Tyrion, you guys. Like Tyrion, he's like a god in their eyes. He could do no wrong. Like even when he was doing bad stuff in the show, they were like glossing it over with like, well, of course Tyrion did this awful thing because like look at this bad thing he had to go through like 2 days ago. Like, and I get it. Like Tyrion's had a hard life, and maybe the show writers. I mean that Peter Dinklage, great actor and everything, but I just think that that character was done a disservice because he was just too perfect. Like, I mean, and I say that with quotes, like as Game of Thrones, the show characters go, obviously he's still not a great guy, but like, they really just dumbed down his character so much.
Like he is one of my favorite characters in the books and his story arc is really great. Watching him change from the beginning and where he is now. So it just really frustrates me to see, and Peter Dinklage could have done that. He could have done such a great job showing that, and it's like they wasted it, I feel.
Well, that's a good segue. We'll go ahead for a second, come back, but because Tyrion is a Targaryen, like we didn't really get any closure on that. I think the show didn't really say one way or another. Like I in particular like that Tyrion is a Chimera. He has two different fathers. We always like to talk about that.
Yeah, we talk about that every single year.
But I didn't see anything. Does anyone think Tyrion is a Targaryen though for the books? I want to see or is anyone on that board? Because there's a lot of hints there that the Mad King was his father, like in the books. And that's why Tywin doubted the parentage, and then he doesn't get grayscale, despite the other guy who pulls him out.
Well, I mean, and on top of that, like Tyrion's, him being a dwarf and his general, just deformities and everything, the different colored eyes, those are, in the books, like the genetic stuff is so like set in front of you. And yeah, like this is another one of those like R plus L equals J theories that like we've all picked apart for years and like gone over and over and over again. Like, is he, isn't he? Probably is. Is he going to be a dragon rider? In the end, like in the show, at least I guess it doesn't matter because there's no Targaryen on the throne, but at least in the showverse, but, are we gonna do that now? Like, when is the next book coming out so that we can like finally have like a show verse versus?
Well, George R. R. Martin's on his blog. He was talking about like I think next summer is a convention or something, and he said like if I don't have it done by then,
Worldcon, I think he said. Yeah. So. but yeah, so like even if Tyrion is a Targaryen, I guess the show ending makes me wonder: does it really matter?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think it does any more than the R plus L equals J thing.
Well, we ended up with one dragon at the end. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately there'll be none. Like that's in the books. I'm not sure if there'll be enough dragons that they'll actually replicate it.
Well, I mean, I would hope that in the books, Euron Greyjoy doesn't come around with like machine gun style ballistas that can just somehow like kill a dragon mid-flight 1 minute and then like not kill the other dragon that's flying straight at them the next minute. But it's fine.
Yep.
Hi. So yeah, I'm definitely believe Tyrion's Targaryen, and just because like Dany, Jon's, and Tyrion's moms all died in childbirth, so I was like, I don't know, that connection's too much. But I wanted to say, because of stuff like this, how do you think expectations affected or didn't affect how season 8 was perceived?
My thing, Ashley and I think. We had already lowered our expectations from previous seasons, so we actually we weren't as disappointed as people that had high expectations.
After Dorne, I just stopped caring.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. Mine was Dorne, season 5. Like, and I don't know. Maybe it's different for other people. I think I have some friends who just watched the show, and they were definitely super disappointed about a lot more, even like as much as I'm complaining about season 8, I didn't have high expectations, and I haven't since season 5. And honestly, that was the point where I separated the books from the TV show in my head and said, if I'm going to keep enjoying this show at all, I have to just look at them as two entirely different entities, bookverse and showverse. But even then, even with these lowered expectations, it was still like, ugh, and this is the end you give us after all these years. Okay.
It's rather fitting that we were just after the Lost podcast.
Yes.
That's why they put us after the Lost podcast.
I'll tell you this, all the show OnlyFans that named their kid Danny, they're going to be disappointed now. But Arya is a win, I guess, or it's still good?
I don't want to just constantly rag on the show. I will say, like, I did start to enjoy the show again when I started watching it with friends, and then if you're in a group, it is a much more fun experience, and if you're just alone there, just picking apart everything on your own, that's not the way to watch the show. You have to watch it with a group of people.
That's definitely a social aspect, like, having like a dinner together or whatever, and watching together is the plus of the show.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so just in terms of what were like some of the biggest missteps in the writing, in the second half of the series. I think the number one on my list would be the Beyond the Wall episode. Let's go kidnap a white and bring it to Cersei. I felt like that was a Scooby-Doo plot. Get to that, right? Like, seriously.
And you plot down badly, too.
And to get to that point, that kind of nadir after where we started with, 4 seasons of, one of the finest adaptations, one of the greatest stories ever told. It was just really sad for me. And then on the subject of Tyrion, I just wanted to mention what I thought was the single, just worst, most heartbreaking change that they made in the adaptation, which just ruined me as a fan of Tyrion, was leaving out the Tysha conversation with Jaime. When you get to, Jaime's freed him, and then there's that moment of when Jaime says, a Lannister always pays his debts. And Tyrion's like, what are you talking about? And then we just find out all the build-up around Tysha just gets blown open.
I can't remember. Was Tysha ever mentioned in the show?
Yeah, it was, but they undermined that story earlier.
Times.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's where the showrunners had laid the trap. There was that moment where Tyrion, Bronn, and Shay were drinking and getting to know each other again at the Green Fork, in season 1 or 2, and Tyrion tells the whole story about his childhood marriage or his teenage marriage. And so it was already there, and then to not have that, because to me that was so crucial in who he then becomes in the next book.
I mean, let's be real. The show in the earlier seasons, they laid out a lot of stuff that they just never, there was no payoff on. And I think a lot of that, it was time constraints. It was probably toward the end, even budgetary constraints, because they were spending all their money on dragons and couldn't let Jon pet ghosts and stuff like that. But
I think they were also hoping that the next book would have come out so that they could.
Yeah, they would. So they're working with just the most basic plot points that George would give them, and between not knowing the fill-in stuff and then also. Again, we need to wrap this show up, and I don't know if it was Benioff and Weiss or HBO or a combination, but I do think that we could have gotten this definitely could have had at least a 10-episode season. We probably could have had 2 seasons more, and still had enough, to go on if they hadn't rushed. Because season 7 was a bit rushed too, and they could have there could have been more payoff on some of those storylines that they introduced and then abandoned. I do have a little bit more understanding of them dropping certain things like that because again adaptation, but yeah, it is weird, looking back and seeing there was this whole thing where Tysha seemed like she might have been an important, conversation piece later again, and then just nothing.
Well, I'll comment on the Tysha thing because they actually, if I recall correctly, they undermined it back then. Shay kind of undermined it, of course she was fake or something, so they couldn't go back to. They already had undercut it earlier too. I think that was a mistake even back then.
I think that happens. Yeah. I feel like that maybe something similar happens in the books. I can't quite remember how the conversation, went in the books, but yeah, I mean, Tyrion had his own. His everything about him is so different in the show that I think the Tysha thing just probably doesn't, and Jaime's involvement in it probably, it just wasn't ever going to matter in the show the way it probably does in the books.
One quick, what do you think of David and Dan bailing on coming here?
I think it was the right choice.
Yeah.
Can't hide forever.
This is a working hours in Star Wars, right? They don't have time to go here.
Yeah. Just Martin doesn't have time for it.
So they're not coming. Initially it announced they were coming.
Yeah, no,
they
couple days ago.
That they weren't coming.
Oh.
A lot of people are trying to downplay it, neither the actress who played Miss and and Ian Glenn aren't coming either. It's they probably have I'm sure Benioff and Weiss have other commitments, but I really think they decided not to come.
At Con of Thrones just last weekend, and they had Nikolai as one of the guests, and he was saying, they read the comments too. They hear you all. So I think they just, knew what the audience was looking for, and they think the audience is out for blood.
I'm going to use this as a good transition. It's a little bit of the feels. I understand they wanted to go make Star Wars. We got it. They needed to wrap it up. And I do think it was very wise of them to go, you know what? We probably don't need to come to Con. I feel them. But I will say, I don't think that they expected to have to finish George's story. And I feel that they kind of were like, okay, it's present. They were like, fuck. What are we gonna, I'm sorry, podcast, you can believe that. But just like, oh crap, we weren't expecting to have to finish this story. And they clearly are not as skilled and talented in a storyteller as George is. So he's at a totally different level. So I without cutting them slack for completely breaking my heart and destroying the series, and I now pretend like Aliens, anything after Aliens 2 doesn't exist. So that's kind of feel like the latter seasons of Game of Thrones. But I want to say that I appreciate them bringing it, because I didn't know what Game of Thrones was. My husband sat me, he got with a baby, but he sat me down after the first couple episodes and was like, you need to watch this, it's going to be great. I lost my mind, and I have read them multiple times. I've watched the series multiple times, so as much as we want to rag on them for, again, completely just destroying what we love so much, I still have to say that they recognized an amazing story and brought it to us. And I appreciate them for that. How they ended it, not so much. But I just want to throw that out there because I know we're all angry.
Oh, no. And actually, I was reading...
But I just wanted to throw some love because I would have never been introduced had they not have had the guts to take it to HBO and to do the thing. So that's my PRPC.
Well, I was actually reading a Cracked article earlier today, I think. Yeah, earlier today. That was basically like, five reasons why we don't give Game of Thrones enough credit. And the biggest one is like, no matter how disappointed you are in, what happened or how they ended it or how they wrote things or how they ruined your favorite character. And I'm in all of those boats, no matter how disappointed you are in those things. Like, and even if you were like me and you read the books first or, we never thought we were going to get a TV show of this magnitude. We never thought we were going to get anything, period, but certainly not something of this magnitude. And, there was so much of it that they did very well, especially in the earlier seasons. But even, like the dragon dance in the Battle of Winterfell episode was like, I never thought I would see that. That's amazing. Like, and the fact that it opened up this fantasy series that was honestly like, you look back at the old covers of the Song of Ice and Fire books, like if I'd seen that in a bookstore like when I was in high school when it came out, I would have been like, what is this junk? Dragons and half-naked blonde women on the cover? Who wants this?
It's like the German titles.
Yeah. So like it really made it more of like a mainstream thing, and it brought so many people into the fandom, and it has as with any fandom, there's bad points to it. There's people who act like jerks, whatever. But in general, like you get yourself in the right circles, and this can be a really great group of fans to be involved in. And like, I for one, like my entire life is different than I ever would have expected it to be because of this show and these books. So.
Well, if you read, you watch some of their earlier interviews too, they were very focused on the Red Wedding. That's what they really wanted to get to, and then after that also they started running out of material. So they were very passionate at that point. So we got 10 minutes left, so I think maybe we'll go to some of these later slides first just to make sure we go through what we're involved in. Yeah, we can come back to prequels afterward. So we're talking about where is the fandom going here? Like, we have some different podcasts available if you're interested in the books. Ours is Podcast of Ice and Fire. We've been podcasting for about 8 years now, or 12. Is it that? Yeah. Okay, no. Oh, you're right. 12 years of Podcast of Ice and Fire. 8 years Bastards of Kingsgrave, which is the one where we do anime and other fandoms. That's right. Yeah.
And there's also like, if you're doing, there's actually a bunch of people doing rereads right now. The History of Westeros is doing, they've got like a Valor Rereadus, I think is what they're calling it. And I think they do like webcasts or live webcasts or something every week, I believe. And then you've got like Girls Gone Canon, which does POV by POV, and then Not a Podcast, which I believe is just in order. And there's quite a few other ones.
There's tons of podcasts out there now.
Yeah.
You can find anything you want, pretty much.
And honestly, like, I do think that unless the next, and I'm not bashing anything or rushing anything, but unless the next book comes out like within the next year and a half, there is a good chance that the fandom is going to kind of settle into a sort of stasis, but I don't think it's long lasting. I do think the book will come out eventually. Obviously, we've got the prequel that they're already working on that's going to, it's not going to just air a pilot. We'll at least get a season, probably more, because I can't imagine that it will be completely unsuccessful. So.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. So we have some other works that you can pass the time with. Has anyone read The World of Ice and Fire? It's basically, it's like an encyclopedia type book with good artwork.
If you can't get enough of this world, you have to read that book. Like, I love that book. I probably would take that book over the next Winds of Winter, to be honest, because I just love the history, the dark history. World history will just annoy you because it gives you more mysteries and answers, but it's great.
Yeah, we actually did an interview with the co-writers that helped write that book too. It was pretty good when it came out in 2014, I think. The Hedge Knight series is really good. Anyone read the Hedge Knight series? It's like 80 or 90 years in the past. There's different forms. There's graphic novel form, or you can read it in a short story.
Yeah, it's actually, they've got them collected into one book, then they've got the novellas, and then they've got the graphic novels. So like, if you're looking for something different, the graphic novels are a cool way to read some more, Song of Ice and Fire.
And I think a lot of people are crossing their fingers that that's going to be one of the prequels they're talking about.
Well, that was the hope, but we have no news of that, unfortunately. But it is material that is there that could be used in the universe. It's good. Brienne's ancestor is in there. Then there's a cookbook for the people who like to cook. But make sure you know how to cook, because it's complicated, isn't it?
I tried, it failed.
I've made like a bunch of recipes from it, but to be fair, like I worked in the restaurant industry for many years as a prep chef, so like they're hard though, like even for me, and actually a lot of it is like finding some of the ingredients. I mean, especially where I live in South Carolina, so good luck.
Yeah. Well, they have two forms in there often. They have like the medieval style one, which is like more complicated than the modern one, but it still doesn't walk you through it. You need to know.
You need to know some stuff.
Anyone play the board game at all? The Infamous board game?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's a Mother of Dragons expansion that came out. There was a lot of history with the game, different versions of it. I like the 4-player Feast for Crows. Actually, I think I may have a link for that. Do I have it in here? If you search, let's see if I have it in there. Sorry.
I think it's in there. I remember seeing it.
There it is. Yeah. So if you're a fan of the board game, go to that site if you don't mind. We're doing a survey to get support for it because there's no official tournament. So we're trying to get people to fill out the survey, say like, if you want a tournament, what kind of tournament, and just I have contacts at Fantasy Flight Games that make the game, so we need the fandom to show interest in it to have an official tournament. So yeah. Okay, let's go back to. And there's other games as well. I mean, there's a trivia game. Anyone play the trivia game? It's show-based, right? So it can be tricky sometimes. Yeah.
I highly suggest the Monopoly one. Yeah, the trivia one. The trivia ones are always like, they're hard. They have to search for like questions. So like you could know a crap ton of stuff, but like you're still gonna not get like half these questions, I swear. The Monopoly one, I highly suggest playing that. And like what my friends and I do is anytime anybody says like a dollar or dollars instead of stags or whatever, they have to put whatever I can't remember what the lowest denomination is in their Monopoly game, but they have to put like one of those in the pot, so it turns into some real fun when.
I've played the Risk game too, and that's a lot of fun. Each faction has like different like abilities, and it really changes the game up, and I enjoy it better than the real version of Risk.
Okay, so other works of George R. R. Martin. Has anyone been a fan of George before Ice and Fire? Yeah, you're all the way back to wildcard stuff, right? John?
My first time I read a George R. R. Martin series in 1978.
Wow.
But I was a big fan of the Wild Cards and the Haviland Tough stories, which are about genetic engineering.
He's writing about genetic
quite poignant for today's.
Yeah, genetic engineering things in the 70s, right? He was writing that early, like he had a lot of foresight there.
And that's collected. It's 3 novellas and into one book, and it's really worthwhile.
Well, every subject he goes to, the point is he didn't become a great writer out of nowhere. He's been writing for decades in various, vampires, werewolves, whatever. Whatever he touches, he does good work on, and it's there.
Yeah, I've read maybe half a dozen of his other works, and I've really enjoyed everything. They're very thought-provoking.
And there's The Pear-Shaped Man is one of his horror works. It's about a guy who's shaped like a pear. It's actually really scary. So it's like there's cheese pops. He makes cheese pops really scary. Like you never look at cheese doodles. Look at cheese doodles. He's always this pear-shaped guy is always offering cheese doodles to people, and so he wants to show them his name. So it's really creepy. Second kind of loneliness. is also really good work. It's from George's youth. He has several of these short story works that he really draws on from his own experiences. Sand Kings is really scary. Good as well. So there's also an Outer's Limit adaptation of it. They really changed it quite a bit. I like the original Sand Kings better, but maybe we'll get more adaptations of it. We'll see. Okay, and there's the Ice Dragon, but it's not in the same world. Okay, that's just marketing, it's just some other world. But concepts in these earlier works appear later. Names and that kind of themes will appear in the actual work. Okay, we'll talk about Ice and FireCon.
We don't have to talk about it for a long time, but Ice and FireCon, like I mentioned earlier, I'm the creator and organizer for Ice and FireCon. Ashley is on our small council, actually, and Amin is one of our fandom fave guests. We have like podcasters and webcasters and stuff that come. Actually, next year we've got David J. Peterson, the guy who created the language, the Dothraki and Valyrian for the show coming, so pretty excited about that. But yeah, we are. I think I don't remember who said it. It was several years ago. Someone called us. It's like summer camp for Game of Thrones fans. It's not in the summer. It's in April in Ohio, so it's not very hot. But it's basically just a weekend where we go out to a lodge that's about 40 minutes from Columbus, Ohio, and it's panels, and we have like a LARP tournament that's really funny and fun. And I think is there a picture? Oh yeah, the corner over here. This is from our tournament. We have a very large Frey faction. It's pretty hilarious. But yeah, so and we have a board game tournament every year, and I don't know. It's basically like several hundred fans, getting together and getting to know each other, because it's not about meeting famous people or merchandise or anything like that. It's really just hanging out, partying, and talking, and some really great costumes.
People get really obscure there because they can, and people will get it.
Well, you can strike up conversations with people over lunch, whatever, Lazora High or whatever, like anything.
Yeah.
You just know they get it, right? You can talk about whatever.
Yeah, so we have a lot of other and just fun events that you're not going to get anywhere else. The past 2 years we hosted Westeros, an American musical, which is Song of Ice and Fire story set over music from Hamilton. So if you haven't heard of it and you like Hamilton, Google it, because the book, the lyrics are they were written by a good friend of mine, and they're very amazing.
All right, we've got 1 minute left, so again, we'll do our final plug here. So we have Podcast Ice and Fire. It's 11 years now. Now, we've been podcasting so long that I forgot. It's 11 years. We have the longest running reread of the books. I think that's going on for about 8 years. We also have Vassals of Kingsgrave, which is like everything else, anime and games, but from an Ice and Fire perspective. So we
tie it in somehow.
Vassals of Kingsgrave is for anyone out there, like any fan or listener of the podcast joins into that. So we have people from various continents, like all over the world, doing Vassals. It's like a community.
Oh yeah. We had a bunch of Vassals of Kingsgrave people do some panels at Ice and Fire Con this year. They were great.
So, thank you everyone for coming to our panel.
Thank you guys. Have a great Comic-Con, by the way.
Thank you for listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. If you like what you heard, please check out my website, ageeksaga.com, or consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/ageeksaga.